an island in the middle of the sea, far from every coast and every sea road. On it live a goddess and a single mortal man. She has offered him the one gift no mortal is supposed to refuse: stay with me, and you will never die. And every day the man walks down to the shore, sits on the rocks, stares at the empty horizon, and weeps. He is Odysseus, and he has been a prisoner here for 7 years. What happens next, across books 5 and 6 of the Odyssey, is the story of how he becomes himself again, first by refusing the gift of immortality, then by being stripped to nothing by the sea, and finally by rebuilding himself out of nothing but perfectly judged speech. This is the man who refused to be a god. Book 5 opens by restating the god's plans for its hero, and the restatement makes practical sense. The situation was established back in Book 1, when Athena urged Zeus to send Hermes to Calypso and compel her to release Odysseus. But in performance, that scene came something like 4 hours earlier, before the 4 books of the Telemachy intervened. So the bard recaps. Athena presses Zeus again. Zeus dispatches Hermes to Calypso's island, and the messenger god delivers the command. The goddess must let her captive go. The scene the poem's opening promised has finally arrived after being held in suspension for 4 books. When Calypso goes to bring him the message, the poem gives us our first sight of its hero. He has been held on her island for 7 years. Every companion who sailed with him to Troy is lost. How he lost them is a story for books 9 through 12. For the whole of that time, he has been a solitary prisoner. He sits on the seashore staring out over the water, weeping, and the poem tells us he does this every day, gazing across the ocean, longing for a sight of Ithaca. In Book 1, Athena told Zeus that Odysseus yearned to glimpse even the smoke rising from his own country, and that he wished to die. That is exactly the man Book 5 presents. Something essential is wrong with that figure on the shore. On Calypso's island, Odysseus is unlike himself, hardly Odysseus at all. He is forced into passivity. He cannot escape. No one can help him. And his famous wits are useless because there is nothing for them to work on, no scheme to contrive, no plan that could get him off the island. A passive Odysseus is barely Odysseus, and it is probably no coincidence that the goddess who holds him is called Calypso, a name that means I shall hide or I shall conceal. She conceals him from the world. In a sense, she conceals the real Odysseus even from himself. Unable to act, unable to plan, he hangs in a limbo between genuine existence and death. Then Calypso tells him he may go. And the moment there is an action he can actually take, the man begins to reassert himself. This first conversation, the first exchange Odysseus has with another character in the whole poem, establishes 3 crucial things about him and about the poem's deepest themes. The first is caution. Calypso comes down to the shore and announces that she has decided to send him home. He does not leap up. He does not call for a ship. He is wary. And he makes her swear that this is not some trick. The oath he demands is the great oath by the river Styx, the inviolable oath of the gods. A god who promises by the Styx is bound by that promise. So Calypso swears she is not deceiving him. She is not planning to harm him. She is not scheming against him. The hero's very first exchange in the poem is an exercise in suspicion. The second is that Odysseus understands and even welcomes the human condition. Calypso has offered him immortality. Stay with her on the island and she will make him a god. Greek mythology is saturated with stories of human beings who reach for exactly that gift. Almost every one of those stories ends in disaster. The most frightening is the story of Tithonus, a mortal loved by the goddess of the dawn. She made him immortal and forgot to ask for agelessness to go with it. So Tithonus cannot die, and he cannot stop aging. He grows older and older and older without end. That story is paradigmatic. Immortality is not appropriate for human beings, and it does not work for them. The crucial dividing line between the 2 kinds of being is precisely this. Humans must die, and the gods cannot. Odysseus seems to grasp it. Offered the eternal life so many humans imagine they want above all else, he refuses. He wants his humanity. He wants to be Odysseus. He wants to go home. The refusal has a price, and he knows it. In rejecting Calypso's offer, he accepts the human condition entire, aging and death included, even though the homecoming cannot give back the 20 years already torn from his own life, and from Penelope's and from Telemachus's. Because in the world of these poems, an individual in isolation is scarcely a human individual at all. Away from Penelope, from Telemachus, from his old father Laertes, from Ithaca itself, Odysseus is not really Odysseus. The Iliad makes the same point through Achilles, whose self-imposed isolation cuts him off from his own humanity, until at the end of the poem, he is reintegrated by accepting the human condition, death included. Choosing home over Calypso is a choice to become Odysseus again. But knowing what he wants is one thing. Saying it, to a goddess, to her face, is quite another. The third thing this scene establishes is the skill the poem loves best, his mastery of speech. Throughout the Odyssey, Odysseus shapes what he says to whoever stands in front of him, arranging his words into the form his listener will be most receptive to. He thinks about his audience before he opens his mouth. The first demonstration concerns the offer of immortality itself. After Calypso swears her oath, the two share a meal, and the poem notes carefully what is on the table. He eats mortal food. She eats nectar and ambrosia because she is a goddess. One table, two different kinds of being. And over that meal, Calypso makes her offer one last time. If he knew how much suffering lies between this island and his home, she says, he would choose to stay. She can make him immortal. And besides, is Penelope really preferable? Is she really the more beautiful? A mortal woman set against a goddess? This is a dangerous moment. It is not wise to offend, annoy, or anger a deity. A god can do very unpleasant things to a human being, and Calypso has framed the question as a direct comparison of the two women, inviting his answer. Somehow, Odysseus must say, I want to go home without insulting her. Here is what he says. Goddess and queen, do not be angry with me. I know perfectly well that everything you say is true, and that prudent Penelope cannot match you in beauty or in stature. She is mortal, and you are immortal and ageless. And even so, what I want, what I pine for every day of my life, is to reach my own house, and to see the day of my homecoming. Notice what he does not say. He does not say he loves Penelope and does not love Calypso. He does not say that Penelope is his wife and Calypso is not. He does not even say that he is human and wants a human and wants his home more than any goddess. He phrases the refusal in the only terms Calypso can hear without an affront to her dignity. It is a first brief sample of a skill the poem returns to again and again. With Calypso's help, Odysseus builds a raft, and she provisions it with food, wine, and water. He sails for 17 days. On the 18th, the mountains of Scheria rise on the horizon, the place where he will find excellent Xenia, and help on his way home. He is almost there, and then a god looks down. Poseidon, lord of the sea, hates Odysseus, for reasons the poem will reveal later. And there is a revealing detail in the timing of all this. Athena made her move on Zeus while Poseidon was, so to speak, out of town, away in Ethiopia, receiving sacrifices. The poem is careful to tell us he was away. That is why she raised the matter at that moment. These gods know a great deal, but they are not omniscient. Poseidon has no idea what has been arranged behind his back. Now, striding home across the sea from Ethiopia, he looks down, and sees Odysseus on his raft, within sight of land. Poseidon knows Odysseus is fated to reach home, and the gods cannot, or at least do not, overturn fate. But nothing says the journey must be gentle. What Poseidon can do is make it worse. And so he does. He shatters the raft, and leaves Odysseus swimming for his life. For 2 days and 2 nights, he is alone in the open sea. When he finally comes ashore on Sharia, he is naked, starved, and more dead than alive, smashed against the cliffs, bruised, torn, bloody, caked with salt. At the mouth of a river, he prays to the river god for help, and the god pulls him ashore. He crawls out of the water and, as Book 5 ends, falls asleep in a pile of leaves. Homer reaches for simile. He is like a man burying a burning log in ashes, preserving the seed of fire through the night. One small spark of life banked against the dark. Odysseus does not know it, but he has landed where he will receive the best Xenia anyone could hope for. The people of this island are called Phaeacians and not Scarians because they migrated here from an earlier home called Hyperia, bringing the name with them. And they are devoted, above all, to the care of strangers, especially to carrying stranded travelers home in their ships. He is in better shape than he knows, but there is a practical problem. He lies asleep in a heap of leaves by a river. The Phaeacians are in their city, and he is far too broken to go searching for help in the morning. He has to be found. Athena arranges it, as she has before in this poem, and will again. She is his particular patron among the gods. In the night, she appears in a dream to Nausicaa, the young princess of the Phaeacians, and plants a thought. Take the household laundry down to the river in the morning and wash it. Nausicaa is one of the most vivid and appealing characters in the Odyssey. She has one more brief moment in Book 8, but real attention is paid to her only in Book 6. And yet she is drawn so sharply that she stays in the mind long after more prominent figures have faded. She is about 14, which in this culture is marriageable age, and she is plainly thinking about marriage. No fiancé has been chosen for her. In a society of arranged marriages, that hardly matters. What matters is that she is of an age to marry and her mind is on it. So when she asks her father, Alcinous, king of the Phaeacians, for the wagon to carry the washing down to the river, he understands, without her saying a word of it, that she is thinking of clothes for her own wedding. She takes several slave women of about her own age. They wash the clothes, spread them on the ground to dry, and pass the waiting time playing a game of catch. Someone misses the ball. It drops into the river. The girls cry out, and the shout wakes the man sleeping in the leaves. Odysseus wakes and wonders where he is. The lines he speaks to himself will recur at two other crucial moments in the poem. What sort of people hold this land? Are they violent, savage, and without justice? Or are they hospitable to strangers with God-fearing minds? It sounds like a practical question. It is really a definition. Savagery and lawlessness on one side, hospitality to strangers on the other. Odysseus is naming Xenia as the defining characteristic of civilization itself, hospitality standing for civilization as a whole. Then he considers what to do, and his position is awkward in the extreme. He is stark naked. The sea tore his clothes away. He is bruised and battered. His hair matted, his skin crusted with dried seaweed and salt. He hears women's voices. He peers out from the shrubbery and sees a group of young girls. How is a naked, battered, wild-looking man to come out of the bushes without terrifying them, and then hold their attention long enough to convince them he means no harm? There is genuine humor in the scene. He actually weighs whether to run up to Nausicaa, clearly the leader, throw himself down and clasp her knees, the standard gesture of supplication, or whether that might annoy her. Annoy is putting it mildly, and beneath the humor lies something serious. In Greek literature and myth, the seashore is a notoriously dangerous place for young girls. Story after story tells of girls raped near the coast. Young women in this society almost never went out without male protection. Washing laundry at a river mouth was one of the few occasions when they were on their own. Piracy compounded the danger. A woman alone on the coast could be carried off or sold into slavery. Nausicaa has her maids, but no men. A naked stranger rushing out of the bushes could easily be read as the opening of a rape scene, or become one if the characters were other than they are. So this is the problem his next speech has to solve. He must persuade Nausicaa that he will not hurt her, without frightening or offending her by saying outright that he will not hurt her. He breaks off a leafy branch to cover himself and steps out. The girls scatter and run, all but one. Athena puts courage into Nausicaa's heart, and the princess stands her ground, a girl of marriageable age, facing a wild man from the bushes, and waits for him to speak. What follows is one of the finest pieces of rhetoric in the whole poem. He stops well short of her, holding the branch in front of himself. He does not kneel, he does not touch her. He says that he is at her knees, supplication performed in words, at a careful distance. And then he asks, "Are you a goddess or a mortal?" If she is one of the gods who hold the wide heaven, then in beauty, figure, and stature she must be Artemis, daughter of great Zeus. If she is one of the mortals who live in this country, then 3 times blessed are her father and her mother. Never in his life, he says, has he seen anything so beautiful. The choice of Artemis is exact. 3 goddesses in the Greek pantheon remain forever virgin: Athena, goddess of wisdom and war; Hestia, goddess of the hearth; and Artemis. And of the 3, Artemis is by far the most militant in defense of her chastity. The stories are terrifying. One man saw Artemis naked. Inadvertently, with no intention of doing so, she turned him into a stag, and his own hunting hounds tore him apart, while his mind stayed human and he understood exactly what was happening to him. No man in his right mind would consider approaching Artemis sexually. So when Odysseus tells this girl she must be Artemis, he has told her that he has no intention of assaulting her, that he will keep his distance, that she holds the power here, and he has done it without ever having to say, "I'm not going to rape you," a sentence that would itself have put the idea into the exchange. The comparison also carries extravagant flattery. She looks like a goddess. Her parents are blessed beyond measure. He has never seen anything so lovely. Then he qualifies it. He did once see one thing as beautiful, a young palm tree, growing beside Apollo's altar on the island of Delos. The detail is doing quiet work. A man who has stood at Apollo's altar on Delos is a civilized man, a traveled man, a man who knows the gods and their sacred places. Inside the compliment, he has smuggled his credentials. Then, and only then, he asks. He tells her of his shipwreck and his sufferings. She is the first person he has met, he says. He knows no one else here. He asks for pity, he asks to be shown the way to the town. And he asks for some rag to wrap around himself, with clean laundry drying on the ground all around them. He closes with a prayer. May the gods grant her everything her heart desires, a husband, a house, and harmony of mind within it. That ending shows he has understood exactly who she is. He addressed her as a queen, wondered aloud whether she was a goddess, and finally prays for precisely what a girl of her age actually wants: a husband, a household of her own, a good marriage. The whole speech is built to appeal to its listener, while threatening her in no way at all. She answers in kind because she knows Xenia and knows how to help. She gives him clothing and food, and calls her attendants to help him bathe. In the world of the Homeric poems, that is unremarkable. Women bathe men. In Book 3, Telemachus is bathed by Nestor's youngest daughter. Odysseus declines. He will wash himself, he says, because he would be ashamed to stand naked in front of young girls. It is one more mark of how delicately he is handling a situation with no men present. Better to have no contact with them at all. After he bathes, Athena works on him. He stands taller, mightier to look on, his hair curling down like hyacinth flowers. And Nausicaa, watching, remarks to her maids that he looks far better than he did a few minutes earlier, and that she would be glad to marry a man like this, if only he would stay on Scheria. As Book 6 ends, Nausicaa gives him instructions for reaching the palace and approaching her parents. and her speech shows her to be no less skilled in rhetoric than he is. Walk beside my wagon at first, she says, but hold back at the city gates. I will go in alone, follow later, and ask directions from someone. Otherwise, she explains, someone who saw us together might talk. Who is this tall, handsome stranger with Nausicaa? Where did she find him? Surely he is to be her husband. Perhaps she has picked up some god come down to her, or found a man abroad. And just as well, since she pays no attention to her own Phaeacian suitors, though many court her, and the best of them at that. Such talk, she concludes, would be a scandal against her, and she herself would disapprove of any girl who behaved that way, making friends with a man without the goodwill of her father and mother, before being formally married. She says all of this to a man she has just befriended, without her parents' knowledge. Consider what she has actually conveyed. She has told him her name. She has told him that many noble men are courting her and that she cares for none of them. And she has told him she would be perfectly willing to marry him if he were willing to marry her. The whole message wrapped inside a disapproval of exactly the girl who would say it. By describing only what she would never do, she puts her proposal in a form that leaves him free to refuse without ever having to refuse. He never has to tell her that he does not want to marry her. He never has to tell her that he is already married, because on the surface she has proposed nothing at all. So Book 6 closes with Nausicaa having made her interest in Odysseus unmistakable, while also giving him real help. She has provided Xenia with her own hands, clothing, food, directions, and she has pointed him toward her parents' palace, where a fuller and more complete welcome is waiting. Odysseus came ashore on Scheria naked, starved, and more dead than alive, with nothing left to him but his words. By the end of Book 6, those words have won him clothing, food, a road to the palace, and the goodwill of a princess who would gladly marry him, and they have done it without frightening her for a moment. The man who refused to become a god has begun, speech by speech, to become Odysseus again,